live, X
Whoa.
live.
Whoa. You know what I'm missing right now?
What are you missing?
My intro music.
You are missing your intro music, but you're gonna get kicked off of or demonetized from
I
YouTube.
know. I really don't want the intro music, but I still miss it.
Oh, I do miss it too. I mean, on After Dark, we don't really care. Like, we don't try to monetize anyways. You know what I've done? I haven't gone live on YouTube. I've
Oh,
go the
I'm
next
live
day
on
on YouTube. I go the next day on YouTube.
See, but that's why you're the expert. We are in the presence of the genius. I like
No,
the
that's not a
lighting, by the way.
genius. Huh?
I like the lighting.
The lighting? Yeah, it's like the cool background. Um, I have like a heartbeat one too. You want to see the heartbeat one? Hold
Yeah,
on.
show me the heartbeat one.
The heartbeat one's decent.
Is it based on Max?
No, I
So
wish
you
it
should go to
was.
like Max's heart rate.
I mean, I'm not that rich, man. I would need
And
beach
then one
house.
day, like when he is like older and he's got a girl coming over and he's lying to you, you're gonna test it out based on the lighting in the room. Max, why are you lying to me, man?
Wait, this is not the right one. This is for Valentine's Day.
That's Valentine's Day? Dude, what kind of Valentine's Day are you having?
Cozy. Here we go. This is cozy.
I'm
You
pretty
like
sure.
cozy?
No, I think it's Al Qaeda.
Al Qaeda.
Yeah, it's like the lighting at the bottom.
Oh,
Scaring
like
people.
I look like a hostage?
Yeah,
Well, it
pretty much.
slowly changes,
I can
and
tell.
like they wouldn't let you read books if you're a hostage. That's the last thing they want you to do is think for yourself.
How do you know? What how do you know so much about hostages?
Where are we talking about Linda McMahon here, and she's the Department of Education head?
Well, we can if you want to. I
No, I
thought
don't want to go that route. I want to go with this. We've had two huge like I've been studying this stock
okay.
for over 2 years. I've been down a lot. I've bought a lot more shares than I wanted because my conviction, it's either foolishness or conviction, but I bought more in the last 2 days, spiking based on anticipation of
Yeah.
an NDA acceptance. Not even the PDUFA's out. Wait till January.
Yeah,
This is
PDUFA,
just the NDA acceptance.
that's still pretty good. That means that they're ready to file, which is impressive.
Right. I
See,
mean,
you
this
know what I
company.
would want to
But
buy a
why
lot?
haven't you bought it? That's my
Yeah,
question.
my thing is I don't buy stocks. I buy stocks away from an industry I know too much about.
Why?
So I know enough to be intelligent, but not enough to be like to really be knowledgeable.
But that sounds foolish.
No, because I overthink. I invest based on a certain range of knowledge. So I overthink if it's in a like pharma, I would know way too much and overthink all of it. I buy tech. I bought tech since 2012. So
Yeah,
it,
but everyone buys tech.
the two things I do have in pharma is like Lilly and Novo. The one I really want to buy if I had free cash flow right now, I would have bought United Healthcare because
Hmm.
everyone's like destroyed it right now. It went from like 300 to like nothing right now. It's like 150, maybe even lower.
Ah,
And
okay.
and I think that it is completely undervalued. That's my personal take, and I do not own any United Healthcare. Um,
Okay.
but I truly believe that it is PB, and we can have this conversation. People are assuming that PBMs and healthcare insurance companies will go away, and I just don't see it. And we can have that
Yeah,
discussion.
they are. What else? Yeah, I've been looking at things like lemonade and on the PBM side, like to play that whole most favored nation, whatever that whole play.
Yeah.
HIMS has
Remember we were
been
talking. Yeah, they just went global right now on that one, right? They bought
right. But
their.
what do you think? What do you think about HIMS as a potential stock for
For me personally, at this second, I'm not buying Hims
why?
because I love what they're doing, but I think they need to pivot faster and harder than they are.
Pivot to
Uh,
what? Like non-household name drugs?
no, so they've been pivoting into at least the parts I know have been really in the um, in the GLP-1 space, and that market just changed for them. So they were getting a lot of margin off
Right.
of compounded drugs. Now they've partnered with some of the manufactured drugs, which is great. So they're not losing that market, but the margins aren't there. So with most favored nation status, MFN is going to require that there'll be more direct to patient stuff. What you and I were talking about not that long ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but it's one of those situations I think you and I discussed. People are like, "Oh, direct to patient is amazing because it empowers patients to."
Well, wouldn't pharma want that direct to patient?
Oh, pharma definitely wants it, but if I was a
Okay.
patient, I don't want it. And I'll tell
Why?
you why. Because first of all, I'm a big fan, and I think that there's a huge area with direct to patient. But the problem is, I'm already paying for these drugs. So I'll give you an example. Last week I was on a cruise, and when I was cruising, um,
Life is tough. And today you're in the beach house.
you know what? I don't need it.
You brought it up, man. All
So the
right, you're
point
on the
is,
cruise.
I was on the cruise, and we were. I'm gonna dig myself a hole.
Yeah, I know, man. Keep going.
It was a Mediterranean cruise, and so we were going through like Rome, and we were going through like
Okay.
Sicily. It was great food,
Nice, man. Nice.
amazing. But here's the thing. I'd go to these places, and usually, if I just flown to those places, I'd be like, "We're gonna eat out here. It's Italian food. It's gonna be amazing. It's Greek food. It's gonna be amazing. Egyptian food. It's gonna be amazing." But I was like, "I'm not going and getting that food. I've got food that I paid for on the cruise. I'm just gonna go back to the ship and eat right there because I've already paid for it." That's the
Okay.
same
Yeah.
exact story with PBMs. Um, People are saying, "Oh yeah, it's amazing because I can go get my Wegovy, my Manjaro, my whatever directly from the pharma company." I think that's awesome. Here's the downside: I already paid for it using the PBM. That's part of my insurance, so I'm double paying for the same product.
Yeah, but the argument would be the whole side of insurance covering costs or drug costs at least.
Mm-hmm.
Medicare Part B or whatever, or just if you go on the private D, and if you go on the private side, I don't know what
Insurance,
it is, but
yeah.
they negotiate with the PBMs.
But that doesn't change the fact that I've already paid for them, paid for the drugs.
Right, but wouldn't they pay less
No,
theoretically if they go to
no,
consumer?
nope, nope. Because they're not saying don't take it from us. They're just saying you have to jump through loopholes.
Hmm.
However, however, there's in the other situation you can just buy it. So people are saying simpler for me to get it from the DTP. I'm
Sure,
a big
instead of going to Sam's Club or
no,
wherever.
not Sam's Club. You can get it through Sam's Club and the like. You may not be able to find it. So what DTP was solving was you're avoiding the PBMs for the most part, and you're just directly getting it for cash,
Okay,
which is
okay.
what the Mark Cuban model is.
Right, right. Drug direct or something. Price direct.
Yeah, cost plus drugs.
Okay.
So I love it as a concept, but I think unless they come up with some kind of mechanism that says, you know what, because I'm buying it through direct to patient, I'm not going to pay for it through the PBM process. And I don't see that happening because they're required by law, I think, to cover that anyways. But otherwise, I'll end up double paying. So it's the same exact situation as when I go on a cruise. I'm not paying for food if I've already paid for food.
So
So that's yeah.
before you went on your world tour, which by the way, the pictures were amazing.
Thank you.
It looks like you guys had a good time, and
We did.
you should. The world was the world was falling apart even before you left.
Yes.
I think it's somewhat. At least we have a sense of some stability, at least temporarily, maybe.
I don't know if it's stability because I think the chaos is about to start again, right? Because
Yeah,
uh,
every day is something else.
yeah, I mean, Macari announced today that he wants to go after mifepristone. We have
Oh,
I spoke.
what did he say on that? I missed that one today.
He said that he wants to reevaluate the evidence on
Okay.
mifepristone, which is an anti-abortion drug. So,
Ah, I see.
which again, what exactly are you going to evaluate? Whether it causes abortion, everyone kind of knows it does. My issue is going back and re-looking at evidence
I
because you don't
see.
like the answer, not because the science isn't there.
Sure.
Um,
But
so
the opposite side
it's
of it,
driven. What's that?
I understand that part, and I don't know enough about this situation at all. But the other side of it could be because I'm reading Prasad's book, who's like
Sure.
Macary's right hand man. He's very critical of
He's Seaver.
observational studies. He's Sieber, yeah, observational studies, retrospective studies. He's saying
But
you
the
can
book
kind of
said
get
that you should
away.
depend on those, but that's not what these things are approved on. You need two double-blinded, placebo-controlled, multi-center, multinational trials for the most part. So outside
Hmm.
like a rare disease state drug,
Or
uh,
oncology. Like in oncology, you can get like if it's a unmet need,
yeah. So
which are like 50% of them. They were saying in
uh,
oncology.
again,
He's
I think
saying that was abused.
he's
That
he's
particular
trying to prove
thing,
that he's not. What's that?
Prasad was saying that particular pathway or pathways, at least in oncology, tend to be abused by.
No,
That's his argument. I mean,
this is
I'm trying to
he's
get him on the
discovered a
show.
lot of things, and I'm hoping he discovers it. Again, I think he's a smart guy, and at
Mm.
the very, you and I have had this discussion offline where I think Prasad's a smart guy.
Oh,
Quite bluntly, Bakari's a smart guy as well. So I'll
oh, they
respect
all
their
are. Yeah.
knowledge base. What I don't think either of them have, and they're about to get it, quite bluntly, is the regulatory base. Like they assume a lot of things are not being done, and they're going to discover that they are,
Right.
and that's part of the educational process.
And if they do, then it kind of gets them in the face, like they got egg on the face at that point.
No, but it's not about egg. I think it's about education. I just don't want a situation like what happened with Doge, which is you chop off the arm, and then you go, oh shit, we need that arm, and that's the issue.
But what? Okay, so what was one example with Doge where,
Oh,
besides the one I wrote about with the patients that were taken off study?
no, but ignore that. You just fired a bunch of people. For example, OPDP in advertising. You
And then they
fired
hired him
all these
back, right?
people. Exactly. There are tons of those examples.
Well, not
So
tons, but there's
no, tons.
there's
I'm talking about like hundreds. As I understand, it's like hundreds.
yeah.
So they OPDP, if I remember correctly, was 77 people. The last time I had read about it, I heard again. This is grapevine, but I heard right now there's 7.
Okay.
So you went to like that's massive. If again, I don't even know if that's right because that seems really low, but that's what I heard today.
And what about FDA's push for AI to be? They're using it now,
Yeah, and again,
starting today, right?
yesterday or today, but
And
yeah,
they have a roundtable tomorrow about this topic.
but that's my point. Like that seems half baked. Like you've used AI, I've used AI. I mean, I love AI. Both of us are pretty big proponents of it. I go, you're
I'm a
nowhere
heavy user.
close to being used to it. What's
I
that?
think I'm a fairly heavy user.
Me too. I'm a pretty heavy user as well, and I think AI is great. I think AI has a great future in the future, but we're like a good 3 to 4 years away before I can trust AI to do marginal stuff. And you're telling me that millions of people, their health should depend on AI, and I'm going, oh.
So I have a theory about what's happening with this.
Okay, go ahead.
I think this administration, I think we're seeing it in the XBI, which is, for those that don't know, the small cap biotech basket of companies.
Mm-hmm.
It's been getting crushed the last decade and a half.
Okay.
I think this administration is going to be favorable to small biotechs and maybe not so favorable to the big pharma.
Yeah, but I'm not buying that theory either. Moderna just got its ass whooped to it because it's
But they're huge now, though. They're big now.
yeah, but they're still biotech. They're hardcore
No,
biotech.
but not by. You're going by textbook. I'm going by like market cap. Like,
You're talking small versus large, but in the end,
okay, small versus large. XBI companies on the XBI.
yeah, but why does it the size matter?
Because previously the concern was there was so much regulatory capture, and the reason why all these regulations kept getting added in the name of safety. I'm strong arming one side of the case.
Sure.
So in the name of patient safety, which no one can talk bad about, right? I mean, who are you to do that? In the name of patient safety, we've already made it. Now let's institute these regulations to make it harder for the new entrants.
But that's pretending that pharma or biotech had so 2 different responses. Number one, it gives far more credit to pharma and biotech on their influence on regulations than they actually had. So
You don't think they have?
You don't have that kind of pull. So if you're
I don't know one way or another, but how are you so sure?
No, because if they had that kind of pull, they would spend it on a lot of other stuff. You're saying they basically created gates after they crossed that boundary.
They kick down the bridge or kick down the ladders.
Sure, and here's what I'm saying. When you go up these food chains, especially, so people are like, well, regulatory capture, or there's just too much regulations, or there are too many guidances, blah blah blah. Here's my experience with working with pharma, biotech, etc. What they fear more than anything else is lack of clarity. If you don't tell us what to do, we can go ahead and do it because you might come back and punish me for it later on.
Sure.
So if that's true, What then happens is someone goes and clarifies, saying, here's how we want you to do it. The moment that comes out, you now go, that's regulatory capture. You're telling me, you're forcing rules. No, that's clarity. There's a difference between clarity and regulatory capture.
Man, they're good. They're good with that stuff. So clarity. So if we're going to write the guidance and give it to the FDA, and the FDA then releases the guidance.
But that's not how that works either.
The guidance is from the community. I know.
No, that's not how that works either. So guidance, the FDA will announce up front, here are the guidances we're going to create. They'll then propose a guidance. Then everyone, whoever wants to, can comment on that guidance. You then have what's called a Part 15 hearing. People will comment on it, tell you about it, blah, blah, blah. Then you'll have a analysis. And they will, the FDA typically, and you can find this all over, I think it's regulations.gov, saying we received, I'm making this up, 5,000 comments, of which 50 comments were about this issue. We think that this is how it should be. We agree, we disagree, we change our opinion, blah, blah, blah. And they will justify every single one of them. That's that process that takes time. So where you say regulatory capture, there's transparency on what exactly happened, where it happened, and why those decisions were made. If you don't like that, you now have two other pathways that have happened. The one pathway is you get to go, I still choose to do something completely different. A guidance is by definition non-binding on both the industry and on the FDA.
Right.
So nothing stops you from going, thank you, but no. You just have to have a really good reason why. Then you have a second option, which is you can actually challenge the guidance and or the regulation under Loper Bright. And you can go, just because the FDA passed something does not mean that it's right. So the deference being given to these agencies has been taken away as of last year. It used to be called Chevron deference, now it's called Loper Bright.
There you go. We did a whole live stream on that.
Did we? Okay. I have a terrible memory. But
no, that was a memorable one actually.
So my point being, which again, it's not regulatory capture, it's clarity. And when people take away regulation,
Sure.
what you're really doing is taking away clarity. So now I don't know what to do again. And that's going to slow down development, not speed it up.
So, but this current administration, they're actually pretty good at being open about what they're looking for.
No, but because you can't be open about everything, because I have questions about what you're saying.
Sure.
And the guidances will tell you in black and white what you're saying. Now, if every person gets a slightly different opinion, that doesn't help me. I need it in black and white, because I'm going to hold you to that if I can.
Sure. How much pull does one guy have, like Prasad from CBER? Like, does
pull to do what?
So I recommend this to anyone that's working in life science, specifically if you're in biologics or oncology.
Follow his Twitter account. I
follow his Twitter. Follow his YouTube.
2017 or something. I remember
following.
Just started.
But if you don't want to binge watch all his videos, it's actually easier to just read like a 200-page book. It's actually written in layman's terms. And this was written in 2020. And his tweets are pretty consistent with what this book's kind of about. So we kind of know, as an investor, or if I were a drug company, you kind of know where he stands on this stuff.
But that's
like he wrote.
That's my point. You cannot invest and you cannot develop based on one guy who's coming in for a 4-year term.
That's what I'm asking you. That's what I'm asking. So if he's now in charge of CBER for the next 4 years.
Yeah, let's assume he is.
Is this book basically the new guidance? Because
how
does it work? How does it work at CBER then? Like he can't get last say on a drug approval?
No, he might get last say. That's not a problem. That's not that's not the issue. The issue is I am now a no-bit. Take one of those XPD clients or whatever you were talking about, the small biotech.
XBI,
whatever it is. Yeah. Point being, I have a question on what does it mean to have two What does it mean to have two double-blinded placebo-controlled trials? What do those words mean? I can't call Prasad and go explain those words to me.
No, but he wrote the book already.
Hold on. What you will do is the word. When is something a placebo? Might be the question. Does it have to be lactose or can it be something else? I'm just literally making up a situation.
Okay.
at that level, you're not going to bother Vinay for
Right.
what do you think it means. What you're going to do is you're going to open up a guidance and go, here's how they're defining it. And is that a reasonable interpretation? Now, I might still choose to do something different. You'll have a meeting with someone from the FDA.
Sure, you have that meetings.
Correct. Except you don't have people at the FDA right now because they all got fired.
No, that's not true.
Actually,
not the part in the review. No reviewers were fired.
There are absolutely delays. I've spoken to people.
I'm gonna need to see receipts. Not quit, not voluntarily quit because they don't like the new leaders. I mean, fired.
No, not voluntarily quit. I mean, people who are laid off and people are going, I can't have the meetings that I need to have to proceed as quickly as I'd like to. So some people are saying things are exactly the way they were.
Because supposedly no reviewers, according to Macri himself, no reviewers were fired.
So again,
or laid off, during the mass layoffs.
So again, there's a difference between fired, laid off, and just doing more work than they were doing before, right?
Okay.
So you might land up in a scenario where you're saying, oh, there are 10 people. There were 10 people before. There's still 10 people now doing the reviews. Yeah, but they were part of a 100-person team, and now that 100-person team is a 15-person team. So
we're not getting signs of delays of NDA acceptances, or you're seeing this.
That's what I'm saying. I'm telling you, people are saying that they are seeing delays.
Oh, so who's people?
I'm sorry.
Like the biotechs.
Yeah, pharma and biotech.
They're saying they're seeing delays.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So, and again, these will figure themselves out over time, but the cost of it will be you're taking a substantial cost from it, right?
Yeah, because you're essentially slowing down progress that could be saving lives at that time. But AI is supposed to speed it up. AI is.
But ignore all of that. The fact is, if you had those documents alone, you could just go, here's what it says. And again, not many guidance have been taken out. My point is,
right.
If people, right now the regulations, the guidances that got taken out were the diversity ones. So ignore them for a second. We can have that conversation in a second.
Right. But I want to get back to that because I think there's a lot of misconceptions maybe around this.
We'll have a discussion about that.
Okay.
But the piece around it is that around the guidances and the regulations, what you are seeing is right now the rule is for every one regulation you want in, you need to take, I think it's 10 out. If that's true, or one guidance you put in, take 10 out.
You're like
taking away my clarity.
Taking away clarity. But is it because you're taking away clarity that's already become status quo? Like it's redundant now?
No, that's not how that works.
But guidances are optional anyways. Like you don't need guidance.
Optional, but again, I have something to hang my hat on. You just took away the one thing I can depend on.
Well, read a book. Here.
That's not reading a book.
Who needs clarity? I'll send them to them.
200 pages or 500 pages is not going to give me the clarity that literally.
What about their podcast?
Will give. Was that?
You can listen to their podcast.
You can't cite to a podcast and get
no. Their round table.
No, because it's not written down. I can't cite to it.
There was someone who I saw his CV a year ago, and he's got every single podcast he's ever been on on his CV. If you and I did that, man.
I know. Dude.
First of all, we wouldn't want some of them on there.
Yeah. That's true too, right?
I kind of understand what you're saying, but I also think it's like kind of irrelevant. Like, what do you mean?
No,
take 10 out, but if it's kind of already understood how things go, like for example,
no, it's understood it's understood because things were a certain way they are, and you could point to a guidance. That's why.
But you can't, like attorneys, you can't use precedents like this past drug. This past drug, which is very similar to ours, got approved.
Correct. Nope.
3 years ago, we're slightly better.
You're talking about something called stare decisis, and there
what is it? What?
It's called stare decisis. STAREDECIS.
Damn, this is why you have a beach house. All right, explain more.
Stare decisis is where a judge will use precedents to say this was done in the past. I'm not going to move away from precedents. This is the analysis, therefore I'm going to accept it. There is no such thing in the FDA process. There is no such thing where you go, the other drug was approved for A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H reasons. Therefore, I am either going to do it or not do it because you didn't follow that process. All you get is approved, not approved. Now, if someone came out and
Right.
said,
But you
here's,
have talks with them, right?
but
In
again,
the
that's not the way
process.
that works. You can't say in the past. Those will always be situation specific.
Okay, but let's say you have.
Let me finish. Let me finish, and I'll
Okay,
tell you.
okay.
So here's what I would be a huge advocate for, and if Prasad did this, I would be hats off to him on this one. I guarantee you, no one's gonna do it, but I would be hats off for this one. If they went to the FDA and said, every time you approve a drug, you have to explain in excruciating detail what you looked at, why that mattered, and how you reviewed it. Creating that exact stare decisis stuff you were talking about. This idea that now these were the analyses we took on. Here's how we evaluated it, and here's how the answer came out.
So I imagine, because you've been through these meetings with the FDA, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
You've worked hand in hand with companies that have gone through the process.
Yeah.
So I never have. I think I was like heard a phone call once during investors pitch conference at this thing in Irvine,
Yeah.
where the FDA was on the speakerphone and we were on a round table, and this biotech was kind of going through one of their meetings with them, right? Which they have to pay for, by the way.
I can't remember.
They have to pay a nominal fee to do these things, but it's not like pay to play. It's part of the process. Like it's like a filing fee.
Driver's license test.
Yeah.
Thing.
So
Oh, you're talking about PDUFA stuff. PDUFA meetings.
yeah, or like the whole process, like from designing a
It's
study.
been a while, but yeah.
So tell me how it works from designing a study. Let's say it's a phase 3, right? You
Sure.
meet with the FDA. You had good phase 2 data.
Uh-huh.
Well, okay. Let's go back a little step further. You think you had good phase 2 data. You now meet with the FDA to discuss phase 3. Is that how it works?
So usually speaking, what you come up with is you start off. Let's go all the way behind. You'll start off with what's called a target product profile, a TPP, and you'll say, here's what the ideal version of this drug looks like. If I had my druthers, I haven't started trials yet. This is what I'd like to talk. Like this is what I'd like my drug to look like in the end. You'll have salespeople, like the head of marketing. You might have and he'll go, I can sell this drug in 15 freaking years if I can get this target product profile. You'll have the scientist. You'll go blah blah blah. So you'll go, if I want to get to this, what studies do I need to have? So there'll be an analysis that happens. The analysis will say something like, it'll say something like, look, I have a choice of going after. Let's just pick Mounjaro for example, or like Ozempic. You might go, I want this to treat diabetes, and to treat diabetes, I'm going to have to do these massive studies. And I know that there's a massive population. That's why I'm going to go for the diabetes. Okay. Or I could go after the weight loss. And you know what? It's an unproven market, and the weight loss market has been sort of shitty for the most part. And I just don't see the results in the end. So I'm going to choose between those two. And then someone comes out and goes, you know what? I've seen something that says it might work for cocaine addiction. Really? I've never seen anything around that. That seems tough. And then someone else comes out and says, there's a rare disease that this might treat. Yeah, you know what? I might get the voucher for that, and it might be worth considering. So
priority voucher, priority review voucher,
priority voucher, correct? Exactly. And you'll go. These are the different product profiles based on this one drug, and someone sits there, like a team sits there and goes, "Let's evaluate what we want."
Right, and the richer companies can evaluate multiple things at once. The more cash-strapped generally have to go one.
So again, remember, richer companies, I'm making this up. Say Pfizer, for example. I'm not saying it's Pfizer. But the richer companies, the larger companies are going to say things like, I need this drug to make at least X amount of money. Otherwise, it's not worth it for me to go there. It might be a $500 million product. So if it doesn't make at least $500 million, I can't go after it. So your rare disease state drugs are automatically taken out because I'll never make that $500 million back. On the other hand, your smaller companies will say, you know what? I'd be super happy with a $30 million drug.
Okay. All right, but okay. So where do you go from it's a good idea in-house to let's see how the FDA feels about this?
So once you decide the path, once you decide what direction you want to go, then you're going to reach out to the FDA and organize the types of meeting and go, here is what, if we decide that diabetes is where we want to go, then we're going to need these types of studies to do this, to prove that it works.
Who tells you that?
you bring consultants in, and you figure that part out.
So all this without the FDA.
What's that?
So far everything without the FDA.
Correct. So far, everything without the FDA.
Okay.
And then you go to the FDA and go, here's our plan. What are you thinking?
And what's the plan? A protocol or like a draft?
It's their entire study plan of all the studies you want to do over time.
I would think you would go one study at a time, no?
Then you'll start again. You're talking at generalities. I'm giving you vast generalities on what I'm doing. That's not how it works at an actual one-to-one level. But because you will be then saying, you know what, this is my overall plan. Can we talk about this? So you'll actually make a pitch to the FDA saying, here's our plan overall.
Okay. So at this step, because this is a very good, can't believe in 15 years we never talked about this. This is a good process for all the people curious how this works. I know there's a lot. There's investors, there's side owners, there just a lot of people want to learn this kind of thing. So, and to tap it into current events.
I'm not a submissions guy. There are people who.
No, I know, but you know enough about this process to educate us.
Bits and parts of it over time.
Sure. And the other layer I want to add is the FDA job cuts where there's more bottlenecks. So like this process you just described, from when they have the study plan, let's just keep it simple, and they're doing one study right now, to the time they get to meet with the FDA, how long does that typically take?
When you say study plan,
like they have study plan, let's ask the FDA what they think about this, to where the FDA...
It depends on the type of meeting you organize. So there are different types of meetings. There's type A, B, C. And again, I forget which one's which one, but one type is, for example,
I think we're losing Darshan.
Look at the overall plan, the strategy of this. So you'll send a bunch of you don't just go to the FDA and go, you approve? That's not how that works. You'll have specific questions for the FDA. The FDA is not going to do your homework for you. They're not going to come up with anything you want. I like to say the FDA, you choose the rope, you decide how to hang yourself. The FDA simply says yes or no.
Okay, so this is why you have consultants come in to say this is the regulatory pathway we want to take.
Right.
These are the departments you need to talk to at the FDA.
No, the FDA will organize the departments that they need to have. So
okay. So when you bring your study plan to the FDA, what do they say? Like they just listen to you? What's your plan?
Yeah, exactly.
And they won't tell you that's not a good idea?
So no, they'll tell you things like, well, how do you explain this? Or I'm not sure I'm convinced that this is the right. So let's say you say, I want to do a diabetes study with 200 people. I go, why 200 people? Well, because, you can kind of prove it in 200 people. How would you do a, can you hear me?
Yeah. No, we can hear you good.
Okay. Why 200 people? Well, because we think we can prove that. And how are you going to power the study? So they'll ask you questions. They'll lead you to going, I need to know. I'm not necessarily saying yes or no. And they might sort of cajole.
And so you've been in these meetings?
I've done a couple sort of guidances and stuff like that,
but
it's not my area of expertise for sure.
So they will lead you, and they'll basically hint at, well, you're going to need more than that.
There'll be those types of conversations. And there are people who will then come back and go, and there have been situations, one of the ones that are pointed to are the psychotropic medications, some of the psychotropics.
Mm-hmm.
I think the psilocybin, I forget which one. The
psilocybin, they're a huge fan, these new guys.
Well, that was the big problem, because they didn't take all the advice from the FDA. The FDA was hinting in one direction, they didn't take it. Allegedly, I don't know.
Who's they?
The company, I heard the company didn't take all the advice from the
FDA. When it got
right.
I don't know. I mean, that's another podcast, but I don't know. It sounds.
I'm not an expert on that. That's again.
It sounds like it's more, but like we need to take off this shroud of mystery.
And that's what I was talking about. So if Vinay or if Bakari goes back and says, you know what, every approval, you have to tell me why you did not approve.
No, but hold on. Okay. All right. So FDA gives them pushback. Okay, well, no, N of 200 is too little. We suggest. They say things like suggest, no?
I mean, suggest. They will say, I don't think you'll have the power to do this.
Okay.
So you've got to go out and figure out what power you need. How are you going to prove it?
And then if the other group says, well, What power are you looking for? They give them a number.
No, so FDA is not going to tell you how to hang yourself. You have to
Okay.
decide.
Okay.
That,
So when they say, okay, so check this out then. When they say, because I'm in the biotech community with investors, and one of the selling points of some companies, like perceived strength, is they have a good relationship with the FDA. These guys are experienced. They're 6 for 6 on PDUFAs,
that's great.
so they know what they're doing. They have a good experience with that. They have good relationships with the FDA. What does that translate into? They can decipher these conversations
You
better,
decipher
or
the conversations better. Again, you've met people from the FDA 10 times. They're not going to beat around the bush as much. On the other hand, like
hmm.
Darshan goes in and tries to go, hey, tell me what this means.
Hmm.
I don't know,
But if
Darshan.
Darshan was busy enough to go every week,
Correct. Exactly.
aha, then you'd be
That's the
like
discussion.
on friendly terms with.
Exactly.
And if Darshan worked for, I don't know, Merck,
Or if Darshan previously worked at the FDA and he
ah,
goes, oh, I've been in these meetings. I'm usually on the other side, and now I know what I'm trying to say, but I
how's
can't
it
say it.
going, Bob? So we
It's
all
not
know
how's
we
it going,
need.
but it's very much a how's it going, Bob, as well.
Uh-huh. Okay. So it's still a lot of like obscurity around this, unless it favors the experienced
Of course.
pharma versus the smaller.
Well, unless the smaller ones get the right consultants, right? That's
Right,
what they do.
right. Which the best ones are former FDA workers.
Might be, but not necessarily.
Well, because they come with a Rolodex and they come with.
Which is why you often want them. You absolutely often want them, but you want that mix, right?
But there's
Because
no regulatory capture, right?
no, how is that regulatory capture? Because the fact
I
is
don't
that
know.
theoretically speaking, so
Hey,
you
Darshan, work at the keep working there for 2 more years.
uh-huh.
We got this PDUFA coming up.
Yeah.
If we can get if we get lucky and get it approved, we got a job for you here. We got a board
No,
seat.
that's called bribery. That's
Okay,
called
not as implicit or explicit, but
okay. No, the fact is
wink,
that
wink, wink, wink.
I'm at the FDA. I can get a job whenever I want. I don't need your specific
I don't
job.
know if everyone they got all laid off and they're complaining.
Not quite. Again, this is not what you're seeing is unprecedented, right? Laying off
Okay,
so many people is unprecedented.
right,
However,
right,
for the
right.
most part, if you were talking about the trickle that always existed,
Okay.
you're frozen on my screen. Are you still there?
No, no, I'm still here. Yeah, it could be tough at the beach house, man. I know the Wi-Fi there.
Yeah,
When you're
my wife.
closer to the ocean, it's just
Sorry.
it's the price you pay for living the dream, like Darshan. Most
But
people don't understand this process. Me too. I don't. I know about it, but I don't know the inner workings of like who
again, just to
talks
be
to
clear,
who.
there are people who do this for a living. There are the guys who go, "Hey, Bob, how you doing? This is our fifth meeting this week. Let's figure
Hmm.
this out together."
Hmm. Hmm.
And I've done this with 4 other things. So
Who normally employs those "Hey Bob" people?
it could be you'll see small pharma doing it. You'll see large pharma doing it. You'll see consultants doing it.
Who
You'll
does it
see
more?
all of them. It's not like a more
Okay,
thing because
we should
Bob
do a
might
study on that.
you might think
Tufts,
Bob.
Tufts, where are you at?
Think about Patrick, right? Patrick Stone.
Pat Stone, yeah,
Pat
but
Stone
he
started.
works with sites though.
No, I know, but my point is, people choose different paths.
Hmm.
Chances are Patrick Stone, if he was working in submissions, would may have taken a different path because he
Yeah,
might go, you know what, I need to be part of a larger team.
you know what, AQST? Like I know who you need to know over there, and you're gonna eventually meet them. But I can prepare you for them because I know how they think and I know what they want. Right? Is that close to the truth?
Was
I know how they think.
yeah, I know how they think. I mean, that's part of the pitch every consultant makes, right?
Of course.
So,
Yeah. And even then, you're just dealing in probabilities because there's no certainty.
exactly.
But there's no
But now
there's
the
no
moment you start taking
guarantee.
away guidances, now the FDA can change its mind on anything. You start taking away regulations, they can change their mind on anything.
Right. They're very chaotic.
Correct. You just add
We
more
don't
chaos.
know if it's chaos in the form of because approvals have been on a steep decline way before this administration. Approvals have been on a steep decline since like
I don't know if
2016.
that was true because I heard that.
No, there's like graphs on this stuff. I know there's how to lie with statistics, but the graph I saw was the amount of approvals every year has gone down, with the exception of like 22, 21, and 22 because of the biologic wave.
Okay.
But generally, it's downtrending. And that was after the incentives like Rare Disease Act or whatever the act was called, which was supposed to incentivize more.
You could be right. I honestly don't know the answer to that question,
Yeah.
but my understanding was that it was there was a sort of uptick last year, right before.
Yeah, last year and the year before were actually up years, but the trend, if you zoom out, it's downward decline of
Okay.
approvals.
You could be right.
Um,
Again, not my space. Not
Sure,
people are
sure.
calling a lawyer to go talk to the FDA about approvals. That's not generally how that works.
No, I know. But the push towards AI, because this is where this is all taking us,
Okay.
is it's supposed to take the human element of subjectivity.
But does it? How?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's brand new.
My point is,
That's the argument. One of the many arguments besides efficiency is like these people that are worried about transparency. Well, the AI, it's gonna do it based on what the algorithm says, not on Bob knows this guy.
no, but that's not how. Again, in the end, Bob still has to review. Now you just made Bob's
Sure.
life more difficult because you've taken away the people. You've added a chaotic element that no one really knows how to evaluate, which is the
Companies
AI.
can sue the FDA, right? So, like, let's say you got a drug.
You can sue anyone, but the question is, will it stick?
Okay, here's a hypothetical.
There's something called sovereign immunity.
Okay, hypothetical. 2 years ago, this is all hypothetical. A drug for anaphylaxis shock got approved.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
The new company comes out, sees their studies, sees where they got like some backlash, but then eventually they redid some studies and they got the drug approved.
Okay.
New company sees all that and anticipates it and says, we're just going to do that from the beginning.
Yeah.
That way we don't get the complete response letter. And
Okay.
and then their data is even better, right? Let's say it's
Well, your data doesn't get better. Your data is what it is. It's just
no, their drug, this is a
you have
different
more
drug.
studies that are more appropriate.
Right.
Sorry.
They're using the same endpoints.
Yeah.
But their drug is demonstrably better and just as safe. Okay, so let's say 15% works quicker,
That's right.
and then no AEs or no SAEs, just like the other one.
Okay, got it.
Then they don't get approved.
Okay.
Can that company sue and say, well, 2 years ago you approved this company, we're objectively better on the same endpoints?
They've had exactly these types of conversations, and in the past, you don't have clarity on why that drug got approved, right? So, on what basis do you argue it?
So is there any legal recourse for these companies that
So-
feel like they got cheated?
So there are legal recourses. They're just tougher, and that's why I was talking about the stare decisis idea I was telling you about, which is I would love to see that, but this idea that no one's telling us it's judges when you have court decisions, they will tell you exactly what you evaluated, what standard we used. Here's how we analyzed, and here's the answer we got, and then you can appeal it because you said this was a standard. We did all of these things. You were right. You were wrong. Whatever. FDA is kind of quiet about that. So what you're talking about is there are ways to challenge it internally and externally, but it's messier at best.
So there's no guarantee, basically, if you have another drug that same endpoints as a competitor that got approved, that is better, let's say by 20% better on the endpoints.
Yeah.
And
Because
just as safe.
It's like comparing two people and going, I'm objectively better than you. Based on what? What is the objective?
No, based on data. They have data.
No, I get that part. My point is there'll always be something different. There'll always be an SAE and someone
Sure.
So
But by any metric you want to use, right?
But there'll never be that situation is the point I'm making. But there'll always be some give and take. That's just the nature of the chemicals or
Sure. Okay. But let's just say better, right?
Okay.
They get denied, which there's no guarantee that just because you're better and just as safe.
No, there's no official guarantee because you have no way of actually being able to tell. Because it'll never quite be as simple as that. It's sort of like saying if I see two employees and I have to choose between them and decide who's going to be my employee. If I see two resumes, I decide who's going to be my employee. Should I objectively choose one over the other? The fact is, there's always a difference in the two resumes, and you can decide that I want there's some reasons that are legal and some reasons that are illegal,
Right.
and you'll choose either way.
But you're saying on the current FDA framework, there is no transparency as to why something's approved,
Right.
why it's not.
Not in the same way. I mean, they'll show you like check boxes saying that we looked at these factors. This was all submitted to us.
So when
But
they receive a complete response letter, or when they
yeah,
send a complete response letter,
yeah.
they're vague about it.
Well, a complete response letter usually just means that we have all the stuff we asked for. It doesn't tell you why the approval happened. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, no, CRL is like when a drug's rejected, from
Yeah,
what
but
I understand.
I'd have to look into it. It's been a
So,
while.
like, if a company gets a complete response letter, it's been rejected. They
Is
don't list it.
true? Hold on, let me.
I think that's what I mean, unless I'm
Let me write
misunderstanding.
when our complete response.
Yeah, I've been studying this shit because I need to figure this out. And I hope other people are trying to learn too.
That it will not be approved in its present form for one or more reasons.
Correct. So they have to list those reasons, right? The FDA will have to.
Yeah, but again, it's always a mix. It's more than that.
Okay.
And again, because some of those things can't be written down, right? They'll just be like, there's something more to this story, and that's why I'm saying
Or like insufficient data or something.
Right.
So then it's similar to a 483 when a PI gets one, where they usually just say lack of PI oversight, but it's like
yeah, what is
they
that?
don't necessarily have specific every example of
Right.
something wrong, something that went wrong.
Right. So they might give you an example or two, but there's often more.
Right. And you're hoping that the examples are part of a larger trend so that you're not missing anything when you analyze that letter.
Correct.
And same thing with the CRL for a biotech or whatever sponsor.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is some transparency in regards to the complete response letters, but not so much on the approval. So the approval just say it's been approved, right?
Yeah,
sometimes they say with temporary, like you have to put some restrictions on it or whatever.
Stuff that go along with it, but yeah.
Yeah, this whole world is. I've been doing this over 2 decades, and this part I haven't really figured out.
It's not my area, especially there. I'm sure there are going to be people who come on and go, "Hey, you didn't get this right," and I'd love.
Yeah, but you're the man, dude. You're like all over the place, being generalist over there.
Yeah, just not my specific skill set.
But you've been in these meetings, like.
I've been like again. It's not like I go to these meetings every freaking week, or
right.
I've been to one, and then maybe I'll sort of see a bit of another, and they'll see a prep for the third, and you're just going. I can get a.
Are you overall impressed with the FDA? Not just neutral of who's running it, but or lackluster? Is it like? Are you impressed with how they operate?
I like the FDA. I think that it is. I really do wish that we had clarity on how approvals happen. That clarity is not there.
Yeah, wouldn't that incentivize just way more production and innovation in our space?
I think it would, but the problem is then you're boxing the FDA into really saying what matters.
And why don't they want to do that then?
Because number one, as lawyers, we're trained for decades or for years to write better. And to go, here's what matters because you told us that's what matters. You don't have scientists writing the same way.
And at the end of the day, the FDA's job is not to incentivize innovation, even though acts get passed, like the PDUFA Act, the Orphan Drug Act, but they're not passing it. That's Congress passing those.
Congress passing acts. But that's not even the reason why, because I think there's also just, and again, I'm putting words in the FDA's mouth here, but for the most part, what they'd be saying is, I can't put everything I'm thinking into a single document that tells you all the reasons why it either got approved or not approved.
This is crazy, man. And you still think them using AI is not a good idea?
I think it's a terrible idea. I think it's just not, AI is not ready for this.
Well, it's gonna need to be.
I think we're gonna make it fit for purpose doesn't mean that it is actually fit for purpose. Like, for example, if I put in a freaking tablet machine, I would have to go through all this testing to show that it works. All kinds of testing.
Yeah, you did a pod on that with the hospital pill dispenser thing. I
Right.
watched that one.
That sounds like a long time ago, but
That was a long time ago.
okay.
Don't
Um,
judge me, man.
but the point being, um, you're telling me that for a freaking pill dispenser, you have to do that kind of analysis, but someone
Right.
just threw on an AI with no level of testing that we can see, and now just going, oh, okay, now deal with it.
Well, but you're saying that the FDA regularly makes decisions without giving reasons as to
But
why.
there's a human being in the end that I can look at.
But how do we know that human beings not flawed mentally or something else going on?
But I can now look at that. I can have that conversation, right? And go, the
Sure.
human being's flawed. I have
I
none of that.
hope I'm an optimist. I hope the AI thing is more like a move towards greater transparency.
I'd see it as a move towards lesser transparency. In fact, that's known as you have a black box problem with AI. Everyone knows that. That is exactly the problem with AI, isn't it? You don't know the reasoning.
No, you can look at the reasoning.
It's a known problem.
If
Just
they
look.
make it open source or something.
No. Just look up the word black box problem AI. It's a very well known problem.
Yeah,
You
essentially you don't know how it comes.
favorite person Grok, what its take is on AI black box.
I've been using more ChatGPT, but
Okay,
Grok is still good.
GPT, what its issue with
I
AI
will.
black
I
box
will.
problem is.
I don't
So
know, man. I think AI is good to be used for. I mean, look, how come our industry is like such hypocrites, man? We're
okay, go on.
pushing for AI for everything. Like, oh yeah, it's awesome. Let's innovate. And then when it comes to the FDA,
No, but when did industry say we want
like the
AI?
overall zeitgeist of most
No, I
people's
don't see that
opinion.
at all. I think the vendors want to push it. I think the vendors are very hardcore pushing it. But I don't think industry. In fact, everyone I know in
Well,
industry.
you stood up at SOS and were the Baba Yaga of the whole event.
Yeah. But what's your point?
You were the only one against it, more or less.
Against AI, you mean? Or
Against the use of it at sites.
no, that's not. Again, I was again very specific about what I was against. What I was against in that specific context was taking the IP that belongs to someone else,
Right,
uploading it into an AI,
right,
and going, "Oh, look, we can do that." Well, it's not yours to do.
right.
That's a very different discussion from what we're having right now.
I see. But it's ours to read.
It's yours. It's like having the right to read something instead of the right to use it for something else altogether.
We
It's
have the
not
right to Xerox it.
else. You don't have the right to. First of all, you can Xerox it, but you're responsible for the control of it. And the moment you start giving it to someone else, you lost control.
I just like messing with you, man.
Yeah,
You could fax it to people back in the day.
I'm sure you could, and then be responsible for it.
You're responsible for it. So if you upload it to AI, I think you're responsible for it.
But you don't control the group that's controlling it.
No. But on the paid versions of most of these things, they do list um, these lawyers probably wrote it. HIPAA, confidentiality.
I was literally at a conversation today on AI in
It's not
compliance.
listed.
You have major issues with AI in these contexts.
Wow.
Literally today.
At the beach?
No, I was at a conference. I presented on.
Ah, man, that's true. How was it?
It was good, actually. A really good conference.
Huh. Okay.
I attended two separate conferences actually. The one was on just transparency, not clinical trial transparency, like Sunshine Act transparency.
Are any of them concerned with the new FDA?
It was one of the places where those conversations happened, right? Where I
Have you
was
met anyone happy with the new FDA
not yet, not yet.
besides me?
Besides you, but I think you come from a place of all things are happy.
No, I don't.
Uh,
I don't. I think we've got a new kind of archetype here with let's live stream our thoughts on
yeah,
random topic. They did infant formula yesterday. They're doing AI tomorrow. I'm gonna be joining that one if I can. I have a bunch of Zooms, but I'm gonna try to like listen to two things at once.
yeah.
Um, they've never done that before, man. This transparent.
We have very different discussions on what the word transparent means. You think transparent, at least the way I understand it, you think
Sure.
transparent means you want to be able to understand it. I think transparent means I need to be able to understand your analysis and be able to replicate it. Those are two completely different discussions.
I want to understand. Maybe, yeah. I want to understand.
I think I'm talking about industry needs to understand it so that they can make intelligent decisions.
I want to
And
understand the philosophy, and if we could start from there, go down to the nitty gritty.
Yeah, but the nitty gritty, you're taking away the nitty gritty so that we're only at the philosophy
But
level.
they did infant formula, I think today or yesterday when they
I
discussed like
didn't see it, so I can't comment on that one. So I have no idea. I was at a
if they
conference.
go that deep on different topics of interest, I
They
think
Again, they took away the guidances. They're saying they want to take away the guidance and regulations. That's
right.
literally what they said.
Well,
So
maybe those replace them, the town halls or the webinars.
the process of putting in guidances
Yeah.
is decades long sometimes.
Right, but you just said it doesn't matter, and ultimately it's
But it gives
subjective.
clarity. You're taking away the clarity is the point I'm saying.
But ultimately it's subjective. It
But you
boils
still
down
need
to
clarity. Whether or not whether or not it's
Mhm.
subjective, it's something I can hang my hat on.
But you can't hang your hat on an official webinar or official correspondence.
Because again, you're going from 10,000 words to 15 seconds or to 15 minutes, and that's just not the same.
Sure. I get it. I see both sides of it. I mean, I see what you're saying too. I just think you got bullshit before, like, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but again, you're not the one in the industry dealing with it, so you're assuming that it's bullshit.
Well, I'm working in the industry, but
Yeah, but working in the industry, and imagine if I told you that I'm not gonna tell you what an IRB does. I'm gonna take away the regulation that regulate IRBs. I'm gonna take away the regulation that regulates sites. Now anyone can decide that they're a site, and anyone can decide they're an IRB because there's nothing that tells you.
right.
That lack of clarity, and you go, you know what? But we all know what a site is. We all know.
Okay, but the other side of that coin. Imagine I told you all the guidances you want,
Yeah.
exactly what we want, and we still make our decisions how we want, even when you do all those things.
Sure,
And then
but
for some people we don't, and for some people we do. And if we get backlash later, that's fine. We'll pull it off the market.
repeat that sentence. I don't think I followed. Repeat that.
There
for
was a
me.
big drug last year that got approved that nobody understood how. I don't even remember the company.
And those people
For
get pulled
Alzheimer's.
if there's a problem later on, for sure.
Right, but that you got all the guidance you want from that administration.
No, but not all the guidance you want. That's exactly the point I'm saying. The FDA constantly is updating the guidance so that they give that additional clarity.
Both have their weaknesses. One it bullshits a lot, and the other maybe doesn't give enough details.
I would argue that I want details as much as I possibly can.
And I would argue I don't want bullshit. Can we get both? Who's gonna give us both?
AI
No bullshit, and I think AI. I think it's gonna be the AI FDA.
Gonna give you.
The AI powered FDA.
Yeah.
It's already here, man. It's already here.
For better or for worse.
Tell Edie to learn it, because you gotta pass the torch at some point.
I've already been boning up on AI stuff for a different client right now.
I know, and you guys gave away the at SOS. What was it? The
templates and stuff like that.
template. You guys are doing your thing. Look at KLF, man.
Doing our thing. It's been interesting, but we'll talk about that at some point. But
all right, man.
This was a
well, you were on the hot seat and you answered all the questions. I really appreciate it.
Some people tell me I'm wrong, and I'm happy to have that conversation.
I mean, everybody's wrong at some point. It's okay.
Fair enough.
Everybody go follow Darshan.
Thank you, sir.
Listen, go do it right now. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Darshan, thank you very much for coming on, man.
Of course, pleasure as always.